Hey, good day, everybody. Welcome to Rocky Mountain Readings, where we have been reading a wonderful book, Never Get Angry Again by Dr. David J. Lieberman, the foolproof way to stay calm and in control in any conversation or situation. And yesterday was quite a wonderful section where he gave us a whole bunch of meditation techniques and the facts around the physiological effects of what goes on with anger. And I just want to review that very last paragraph before we start today so that people realize no matter how visceral our initial response is, the emotion can roll right through our nervous system in just 90 seconds. We feed it only through cognitive reinforcement, which means it's a choice. Selling ourselves on an impossible lie that we can regain control by losing control. And this is what goes on in anger. And I really hope that people recognize this, especially if you're in an abusive situation. If somebody keeps a rampage going for more than 90 seconds, they're the ones behind it clearly. Physiologically, they are choosing to stay in that position and enforce whatever. I mean, I don't encourage anybody to live in any situation of terror or around anybody that's, acting angry at them all the time. It's just not a good scenario. You need to, like we read the day before that, about putting up proper barriers for yourself and for their own sake to break the cycle. And we hope that nobody lives in such a scenario, that everybody out there would live in true peace and achieve full potential of living. And so today we're on chapter 28, the magnitude of gratitude. And this cannot be stressed enough. Gratitude. I look forward to seeing what Dr. Lieberman's got to say about gratitude. We explained how the brain establishes neural networks that reinforce emotional responses. To maximize anger control, we would do well to build up the surrounding networks that support and synergize a feeling of being calm and in control. And this is why yesterday he gave some exercises, some breathing exercises, and a few other meditative things that can get you into that state of feeling calm and in control. Let's take a real-life metaphor. If a person has damaged nerve in his leg, whereby the corresponding muscle is unable to receive a signal to contract and expand to facilitate walking, all is not lost. Certain therapies can help the patient build up the muscles around the nerve to compensate for the weakness. To create changes in the brain, we proactively engage in acts that build the shared networks, cause neurons to light up, and the dendrites or connections to strengthen. All the connections, one stands out as one from which we get the greatest return in our investment, and that is gratitude. So gratitude sets off a whole bunch of things in your brain, and it's a healthy way to be. And remember, those that are doing the Rageaholic trip are shy of gratitude. It's the last thing on their mind. Expect nothing and appreciate everything. The physiological and psychological benefits of gratitude are well documented. Those who kept gratitude journals on a weekly basis, exercised more regularly, reported fewer physical symptoms, felt better about their lives as a whole, and were more optimistic about the upcoming week compared to those who recorded hassles or neutral life events. They were more likely to have made progress towards important personal goals, academic or interpersonal and health-based. They reported high energy, positive moods, a greater sense of feeling connected to others, and more confident about their lives, and better sleep duration and sleep quality relative to a control group. A study by psychologist Dr. Alex Wood, published in the Journal of Research in Personality, shows that gratitude can also reduce the frequency, duration, and intensity of depressive episodes. This is because giving and gratitude, which is itself giving thanks, redirect our attention away from ourselves. When we look for ways to say thanks instead of indulging what may be our moral natural impulse to complain, we break down the neural net of anger, frustration, and resentment. Yeah. The human mind can focus on only one thought at a time. If we focus on something that makes us appreciative, how likely is it that in that moment we will feel angry or unhappy? It's almost completely impossible. Gratitude is not simply a matter of looking at events through rose colored glasses. The reticular activating system, the brain's filtering mechanism, which is located at the base of the brain, keeps us from being overwhelmed by unnecessary stimuli. Our objectives, and in some instances, our fears, dictate what we deem important and whether or not we unconsciously dismiss or consciously accept something. Our focus becomes our experience, our reality, and we decide what is brought into our purview. Think about what he's saying here, folks. This is a way you create your own world. For example, when conversing at a cocktail party, you become aware of another conversation, and by shifting your attention, you can mute the person who is in front of you and pick up on what is being said further away. The reticular activating system hones in on what we deem important. And this is why, we encourage Torah with the rabbis, is because when you have your reticular activating system focused on Torah, whoa, what a difference. It creates connections and possibilities that would have remained otherwise dormant. Stop, reflect, and act. Reminding ourselves that we are grateful for and acknowledging this every day puts our focus on what we have rather than on what we lack. Are you a half empty or half full person? You got to think, half a glass is half a glass. When we then feel we are more fulfilled. Take a few minutes each day to reflect on and write down what you are thankful for in your life. Start with your most consistent blessings, perhaps those we too often take for granted. Eyes to see, fingers to touch, food to eat, and clothing to wear. Don't overthink. Just, be thankful. And don't analyze what you write. No erasing or crossing out. Just write down everything and everyone you are grateful for as the thoughts come to mind. Now, each morning, spend a few minutes reading your gratitude list. Whenever you are so inclined, or better still, when you are less inclined, add to the list. And always remember to take a moment to appreciate what didn't happen or what didn't go wrong. Look for gratitude in every area of your life, and you'll begin to reap the benefits of a different quality of life. Recall from chapter 8, that gratitude and joy are intimately linked. If we think about the people we know who have a sense of gratitude, we realize they're the same ones who are joyful. By contrast, those who lack appreciation usually live in a cycle of unrealized expectations and perpetual disappointments. Shalom, Sheila. Glad to have you with us. Moreover, consider putting an attitude of gratitude into action by not just thinking about things you are grateful for, but speaking and behaving like a grateful person. When you conduct yourself in this way, the grateful mindset more easily permeates your nature. Have in mind to take note in real time of 5 pleasant things that happen to you each day. Things that you might have previously ignored or shrugged off without much thought. In the midst of each event, spend just 7 seconds or so in appreciation. It's amazing. 7 seconds of appreciation a day can change your whole demeanor. Here are 3 other proven strategies to help transform yourself into a person of gratitude. Yet equally important is to take a mental step back by taking a few moments each morning to reflect on who we are, what we are living for, and why. This helps focus your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors on what is important, so distractions and potential frustrations fall naturally into proper perspective. Notes of gratitude. Find a quiet moment to pen a letter to someone to whom you feel especially grateful. Make sure to include as many positive details as possible about how this person has had an impact on your life. It is best to deliver this letter in person and not on a specific occasion, such as a birthday or anniversary, but just because. If you do, you will be privileged to witness the individual's surprise, delight, and reciprocation of affection and gratitude. Hey, Charles Himes in Cincinnati, welcome. This will serve to enhance your own gratitude, leading you to do more often, even for those with whom you may have lost contact, and to continue to appreciate all the qualities you admire about this individual and others as well. If you're not much of a writer, don't fret. A phone call or face-to-face conversation is also effective. Walks of gratitude. Take a walk outdoors. It doesn't matter if there's a light drizzle or a shining sun, cold or warm outside, gear up and go. As you walk, take the time to admire the beautiful outdoors, the warm and shining sun, the dew-drenched green grass, the sounds of nature, the bright blue sky. If it's evening, cast your eyes upwards to the majesty of the night sky. Take a moment to enjoy the unparalleled perspective and humility. Humility found only in the magnificence of creation, billions of galaxies in a vast universe, and ourselves. As you continue to walk, contemplate all the blessings in your life and your ability to appreciate all these blessings. Begin walking briskly, becoming mindful of your beating heart. Swinging arms, feet hitting the ground at a steady pace, steady but rapid breathing. This integrates a powerful physiological component that reinforces our emotional state. Now slow down, and as you make your way back home, take a moment to enjoy who you are. A person who takes time out to acknowledge what he has, a person of gratitude. Montage of gratitude. Put together a montage, collage, or assortment of pictures, photographs, and quotes of gratitude once a week or once a day. It should not be a chore. Set aside a picture of something that brings a smile to your face or a feeling of awe and appreciation. It can be a photograph of a calming nature scene, a bright colored butterfly, a stunning flower, your baby, your loving spouse, your elderly grandmother, your devoted mentor, a memorable vacation, a family get-together, or a recent celebration. When you have collected between 50 and 100 photos, pictures, quotes, thoughts, and doodles, paste them all in random order onto a large poster. Hang this poster in a place where you will see it, and be reminded every day of all the good in your life. The principle of hedonic adaptation is the effect of growing accustomed to good in our lives. When this happens, we no longer focus on it, and as time goes by, we derive less and less satisfaction. Less and less, where were we? Satisfaction from it. When we acquire something new, we are temporarily happier, less because of its intrinsic worth, beauty, or utility than because we are focused on it. The research is definitive. Appreciation creates happiness. We already have everything that we need to be happy, but if we don't focus on it, then we don't derive any happiness from it. To become more grateful and thus a joyful person, we need only shift our attention to what we do have rather than on what we don't. The adage, you don't appreciate what you have until you lose it, is more than just a quaint saying. It's a physiological truism. When you lose something of value, your focus shifts to it, and you are reminded of the joy that it brought you. It's more than ironic, though, that a pain we feel over its loss doesn't offset the pleasure it brought if we ignored it while we still had it. If your attention is on what's missing and what's not good, then you can be surrounded by all the good fortune, blessing, and material things in this world and never find happiness. Shalom, Ashley G. in California. Glad to have you with us as always. Your focus creates your thoughts, and your thoughts create your emotions. See that connection, folks, the way your focus creates your thoughts, and your thoughts create your focus. Focus on the positive, and you will become a person who is filled with joy and gratitude. Focus on the negative, and you will become a person who is unhappy and unpleasant. It comes down to a choice. Are you going to live your life of appreciation or expectation? And expectation definitely is a breeding ground for disappointment. The power of focus is in play when it comes to the people in our lives as well. Courtesy of the previously noted reticular activating system, numerous studies prove what our own experiences have already shown us. A person intuitively senses whether we like them, even without a single word being exchanged. When you're speaking with a person who can bring out the worst in you, mentally focus on his positive traits, and he will sense that you like him, and in turn, he will be inclined to like you. But don't seem to think that you can manipulate others' free will over this, folks. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Search others for their virtues, thyself for vices, not to be outdone." President Abraham Lincoln has been quoted as saying, "I don't like that man. I must get to know him better. If we look for the good in a person, we will find it." A positive groove. We can make the claim that we don't control our world or even some of our behavior, but our thoughts. Why would we choose to focus on what disturbs us rather than on what enthuses or invigorates us? In a word, habit. When we find ourselves in unproductive rumination, it can be useful to interrupt it. Recall that a pattern interrupt is a specific act that derails our train of thought to snap ourselves out of a cycle of negativity. While we are retraining our brain to focus on all the good, it is constructive to break free from the nasty habit many of us have of dwelling on the negative, which reinforces competing neural networks. We can't expect to control the first thought that enters our mind, but how much energy do we give it to feed on? Will we focus on it, or will we divert our attention to something else? It's curious that we might choose to torture ourselves, reliving painful memories and focusing on all that is wrong, rather than to appreciate how far we've come, all that we have, and where we would like to go. And this is the biggest thing. If you're not where you want to be, you need to focus on where you would like to go, and you've got to overcome the distractions. And anger and negative feelings, can be so distracting. You need to retrain your thought patterns. The Anger Games, chapter 29. Disappointment exists in the space between desire and reality, whereby the more reality falls short of our desires, the more disappointed we become. So the equation, desire minus reality equals disappointment. Disappointment, however, is mitigated by one factor: expectation. The greater gap between desire and expectation, the more disappointment we experience. Therefore, in each situation, regardless of our desire, the more our expectations align, meaning we expect as much, with reality, the less disappointment we experience. Can a person be happy and learn that a loved one has broken his ribs and punctured a lung? He can, if a few minutes earlier he had learned that the injured was on life support but is now expected to make a full recovery. Does he feel angry? No. To the contrary, he's filled with gratitude and joy for one reason: reality has now exceeded his expectations and will presume desire. In the words of William Shakespeare, expectation is the root of all heartache. Expectations are a product of the ego and produce a toxic disappointment. When we manage our expectations, disappointment never fully matures into anger. Let's explain by differentiating between desire and expectation. Take, for instance, a parent whose child does poorly in school. Is the parent disappointed? Perhaps. Does the parent become angry with the child because he does poorly? It all depends on the parent's expectations of the child and his willingness to accept his child's limitations. If the child has a learning disability and the parent accepts this, then anger doesn't exist. However, if the parent refuses to acknowledge his child's limitations, poor grades only serve as a constant reminder of reality, a diagnosis that the parent refuses to face. In that case, grades become a source of constant anger and frustration when reality unfolds in accord with expectation. Even though it falls short of desire, our emotional state is not corrupted by the ego. As long as we accept the reality, we won't become angry, regardless of the experience. We recall the 4 stages of grief discussed in chapter 3: denial, anger, depression, and acceptance. We cannot expect that which we refuse to accept. You see the logic? We cannot expect that which we refuse to accept. And yeah, often that's really the twisted delusion of the Yetzer Hara. Managing expectations. When reality meets or exceeds our expectations, the ego has no traction because, drumroll please, we do not feel afraid. Anger roots in fear are of major significance. Anger's root in fear are of major significance. Anger manifests when life doesn't meet our expectations. When reality surprises us or shocks us, the ego doesn't like the unpleasant surprises because it needs to feel in control. Let's delve more deeply into the psychological mechanics. If someone rear ends your car, you might understandably feel shaken and angry. But if you knew that morning that it would happen later that day, when the moment came, you would feel shaken but much less surprised, and thus feel little or no anger. This is critical to understand. Anger exists because of a loss of control. Something happened that was not only undesirable, but unanticipated. By adjusting our expectations, we automatically eliminate the element of surprise in any given situation. Perhaps a milder example: a coworker jumps out from behind your desk. You get scared and a little angry. However, if you knew in advance where he was hiding and what his plan was, there would be no fear and hence no anger. Shalom, Patricia Swords down in Texas. Welcome. In these hypothetical scenarios, several important factors mitigate the anger when we have advanced knowledge. 1, we reduce our shock and feeling of being out of control because we predicted it. We get to be right. Fulfilled expectations provide a layer of comfort rather than fear or uneasiness about even an unpleasant reality. Without the element of fear, we can process the pending event more objectively and in calm space. We also see the ridiculous nature of an angry response and work through our feelings in advance. In the words of Albert Einstein, in the middle of every difficulty lies opportunity. We have the luxury of time to reframe the experience in a greater context and try to find meaning in it, and perhaps look for ways to capitalize on it and turn it into opportunity. We would not have had the presence of mind to do this in the moment. Let's play How Will I Be Triggered Today? We can't predict, let alone imagine, every anger-triggering scenario. But these situations and anger-provoking people do fall under some familiar themes. It's curious, if not completely ludicrous, that even though we repeatedly become angry at the same people in the same situation time and again, our ego acts as if each situation were new and unexpected, setting us up each and every time. Refusing to recognize this process is like living in La La Land. It isn't reality. Unrealized expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentment. Whoa, what a statement. Unrealized expectations are nothing more than premeditated resentment. Wow. Why, you may ask? Don't we naturally adjust our expectations after experiencing these surprises day after day, year after year, decade after decade? A good question. Ask your ego. If the forecaster predicts a snowstorm and you are planning on a picnic at the beach, you're not living in reality. Think about it. And you're setting yourself up for utter frustration and disappointment. A wise person would plan on a different activity. Of course, forecast being what they are, we may only get a light dusting of snow, and so your ski trip might be canceled. Fine. At least you walked out of the house with a scarf and gloves rather than sunblock and flip-flops. We're not talking about predicting reality, okay? But staying in reality. Boy, that's huge. Here is what we can guarantee with relative accuracy. Today's forecast, it will be an imperfect day. You are an imperfect person living an imperfect life, and things in your day will be imperfect. And that's all okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's a perfect opportunity for you to develop a greater sense of emotional resiliency, self-control, and self-respect. It is an opportunity to show the world that you are in control of yourself and in the process, improve almost every aspect of your life and your relationships. We might feel disrespected today. Someone may cut in front of us in the supermarket or on the highway or ignore our phone call or email. We might feel embarrassed or someone might yell at us. Today, we might feel hurt, helpless, or both. We might feel rejected, lonely, sad, or all three. Today, someone might do something that makes no sense, something completely illogical and irrational. Expect it. Someone may try to take advantage of us today or insult us. We might witness an injustice. Someone may inconvenience us. A goal may be delayed. We might realize something unpleasant about ourselves or a loved one. Another person's act may cause us to question the relationship or ourselves. We might become uncomfortable or feel unwanted. Again, this is not about expecting the worst or waiting for the other shoe to drop. Rather, to quote an oft-repeated axiom, hope for the best and plan for the worst. To plan means that we are cognizant that the shoe drops many, many times every single day in many different ways, and we can be surprised and get angry, or each time can become an opportunity to fortify our emotional health and transform our character. Whoa, what opportunity. Chapter 30, Game Day. Becoming anger-free must be your number one priority. Don't think of this as a hobby where you dabble only when you're inspired and it's convenient. Neural networks are competitive, so you need to activate the new responses with more frequency, intensity, and duration than your anger-prone network. To help us along, we want to track our progress because if you can't measure it, you can't change it. Moreover, studies show that recording and reviewing your behavior proves effective across a wide swath of areas. For example, dieters who kept a food journal lost twice as much weight over a 6-month period as those who didn't. And follow-up studies conclude that they kept it off. The simple act of writing everything down motivates people to consume less and makes it difficult for them to ignore their slip-ups. Keeping a journal or charting your progress towards anger elimination is a way to move the emphasis from a single incident of behavior to an overall pattern. It is easier, too, to sustain progress if you see evidence in writing. Memory is far more biased when you feel discouraged, and you have a harder time recalling your successes. In addition, tracking your progress allows you to adjust your tactics because you can examine what's working and what's not working. While you may be unwavering in your pursuit, you'll want to be flexible in your approach. First, we want to be clear and definite, and we want a clear and definitive goal. And write it down. Just because you're motivated doesn't mean that you have clear purpose. Formulating a precise definition of what you want to accomplish helps you focus on relevant activities and avoid diversions that distance you from your objectives. Keep that in mind, folks, in everything you do. In fact, studies find that people are on average 10 times more likely to succeed by making a firm resolution to a specific commitment. Additionally, the strength of your commitment is magnified, 42% more likely to achieve your goal. Then you write it down, review your statement, and state aloud your commitment to your objective several times throughout the day. And sending weekly updates to a friend can double your rate of success. Second, success requires that for a specific period, you don't reconsider the decision to express your anger in any way. Precious energy trickles out every time you consider. Is this a time to get angry? There are, of course, those who would claim that when properly expressed, anger may be appropriate. In fairness, there are a number of studies to support this position, and yet, for our purposes, the debate is irrelevant, which is why throughout this book we have been speaking about anger in absolute terms. We recall from chapter 5 that emotions help to energize our direction and motivate proper behavior, but only when we first see through the lens of intellect. Let's say that 1% of the time anger is a proper response. In the heat of the moment, we are not able to make that call, and we will decide that anger is necessary closer to 99% of the time. Might you choose to remain calm only to conclude after the fact that anger was indeed called for? Perhaps you wouldn't rather be right 99% of the time than 1% of the time. By taking anger off the table, we are more inclined to reframe the situation and seek solutions rather than to focus on the problem. King Solomon instructs, do not be eager in your heart to be angry, for anger resides in the bosom of fools. Wow. Commentators explain that a fool's anger is readily available and accessible, while a wise person stores his anger out of reach, so that by the time he gets to it, he has already calmed himself down. Therefore, in order to strengthen the proper neural network, regardless of how you feel, the display of anger will be unconditionally off the table as a viable response. So that's the doctors. You don't want to think, just because it might be necessary sometimes, it's okay, because the 99% of the time when it's not okay, you may end up toppling into that, and you'll want to work it out. Better to have it off the table. Having a set time frame is also helpful because you will view whatever gains you've made appropriately as gains, rather than considering yourself a failure because you didn't succeed in completely eradicating the behavior. Start with 24 hours or start with 5 minutes, but start and make the goal realistic. You're going to go, 6 hours at work without it, or the full 8-hour shift, whatever the case is. Anger has 5 main measurable components: frequency, duration, intensity, trigger, and expression. You chart it any way you like. And again, don't underestimate the power of keeping a written record of your progress. Frequency. How often do you get angry? Does it happen every hour? Does it happen every day? Maybe it happens several times one day and then does not even happen for several days. Keep track of the sheer number of times you feel angry. Duration. How long do you stay angry? Take note of how long it takes you to reclaim yourself and to snap out of your state. As we read, the physiological effects, it should clear itself out of the bloodstream in 90 seconds. So anything past that, you're actually driving it. So if it takes longer, you need to monitor this. Intensity. This is a little harder to measure, but you will become more aware of how intense the episodes are once you begin to keep track of them, using a scale from 1 to 5 to help quantify your feelings. Most anger seems off the charts, though, over the top. Trigger. There are always certain situations that will more easily spark our anger. This is something that you should measure because you might just be surprised at the catalyst. Also, take the time to identify the underlying fear at the root of the episode in order to work through it. Excellent idea. Yeah. catalyst. If people realize it's themselves, yeah, definitely got to be flushed. Expression. What did you do with the anger? This is not a one size fits all category. If you are prone to suppressing your feelings, did you choose to express yourself more openly and honestly? If you usually explode, were you able to contain yourself and calmly exit the situation? Yeah, these are good points for sure. Regarding expression, we have identified 3 levels of anger. 1, feeling anger in the moment. 2, acting out of anger with aggressive expression. And 3, resentment from unresolved anger. The ideal, of course, is to enjoy a wide perspective where fewer and fewer situations get caught in the ego's net. Still, if you are unable to avoid feeling angry at the time, progress can be had by restraining your anger. All too often, in the heat of the moment and out of anger, we may say or do something that further increases our feelings of embarrassment or shame. We are then forced to double down, and our anger turns into rage. We lose ourselves to our emotions because we cannot bear the pain of accepting what we're doing right now, which was in response to something else entirely. The ego goes into survival mode and re-ups the ante again and again. The bottom line, do whatever is necessary to avoid rage, the uncontrolled expression of anger. That's the definition of rage, the uncontrolled expression of anger. Yeah, if people cannot control it in any way, shape, or form, it is rage. It is not just simply anger. Regardless of your thoughts and behavior in the moment, wiping the slate clean to rid yourself of lingering resentment, guilt, or shame is a powerful, purposeful step towards an anger-free life. As we noted, taking responsibility is not being perfect, okay? It's what we do when we discover that we have faltered and how we move forward to make this thing right after we have done wrong. Remember, those that are angry usually won't admit that they've done any wrong, and they won't take responsibility, and they begin that downward cycle that he described earlier. You're going to live anger-free. Get excited if you need this. Our success coalesces around one requirement: joy. Joy energizes our decisions to live a life that is anger-free. And this is whether you're the angry person or you're with someone who is angry. You don't need it in your life. If you want joy, it's got to be purged. You have every reason to be excited because you're not giving anything up and you're not losing out on anything. You are gaining in every way, maximizing your potential and actualizing your dreams and becoming a happier, healthier person who appreciates all of the good that life has to offer you. That's definitely where you all want to be, especially as a B'nai Noach. Special note to readers. Although the choices we make during our lives have a strong impact on our emotional stability, severe mental illness, including anger management issues, may result from serious trauma or genetic disposition. This mental state could affect a person's basic life functioning so significantly that his or her thoughts and behaviors fall outside the scope of genuine choice. So just remember, there are those out there that do, in fact, have traumatic brain injury and cannot control it. And you wouldn't ask somebody with no arms or legs to swim for your country in the Olympics, right? You just wouldn't do it. You got to realize that some people have those challenges mentally. And yeah. Just as some people are physically disabled, others are emotionally impaired through no fault of their own. And the hardest thing in this world is to try to make that stick with somebody who's, it is no fault of their own, but try to make it stick on them. That's just a wicked, wicked practice that human behavior should never do, but they don't see it. It's not like when you see somebody without a limb, it's visual, and you're not going to ask them to do a task that requires that limb. They neither chose nor caused their sickness. And to label them lazy or selfish is not only reprehensible, but it's mistaken. The tools and techniques in this book have shown to be life transforming for many people, but others will benefit from the direct guidance of a mental health care professional. So there are instances where people will need a mental health care professional. At what point our free will emerges remains a subject of ongoing philosophical, psychological, and biological debate. And this you'll find with Orthodox Judaism. Free will is quite a huge topic. You need to understand what it really is, its limitations, and its realistic creative abilities. And when you understand exactly what it is, you can put it into play definitely properly. But the indisputable beginning of all change comes when we make a conscious decision to accept personal responsibility. This means that we put our ego aside and seek whatever help we need to regain control of our lives. This is why they have a lot of support groups like Al-Anon. If you're living with an alcoholic, I mean, you need to be around groups to hear the same stories and overcome scenarios and find how people have in fact gotten through the similar ugliness. And but if you don't make that conscious decision to address, you're not in fact being responsible in your situation. And like I said, you don't want to be like a dead fish floating down a raging river that's just being slapped off over the rocks and all over the place. You've got to have life and choose to swim and get to where you want to go, but you need to know where you want to be first and have clarity. And I love how he's being very, very thorough here. Acknowledgments. I think that is the end of the book, folks. As I said yesterday, I don't want to keep going and reading the acknowledgments. Yeah, it's acknowledgments and endnotes. Like I said yesterday, I thought we would finish it today, and we did, which is good news. It's tough to tell when I'm reading it on a Kindle edition. This one is kind of great because it shows how many pages it is versus the paperback plus the Kindle pages. And like you can see, this book is 225 pages in a paperback. That's 2,891 locations in the Kindle edition. And it's now ending 400 before that, right? 2425, and we're at the end notes. It only calls it 85%, but sometimes books are done like that. The last 15% is all end notes. And so you can see where he's getting his references. And nonetheless, it's been a wonderful journey, and I want to thank our friend Zakia down in Lima, Peru, for recommending this work, and hopefully it's been useful and helpful to some people out there. And if it just helps one person get off the track of abuse, or if it helps one person stop being an abuser, it's been well worth the read. And oh, bless you, Ashley. I'm glad you really enjoyed this one. I don't know you that well, Ashley. You should reach out and friend, and we could chat, on Messenger and Facebook. Give me a friend request. Just look me up, Dan Barwell, on Facebook. I so appreciate your generosity of late, and thank you. It's inspiring. I sent Rabbi Goldberg some more information this morning. We're trying to grow this international Noahide network. And Sheila, I know that this is awesome, especially for Will. The material in here is definitely, but to hear that physiological limitation. And I think, the doctor was clear here in the end that there are, in fact, instances where, certain mental states or brain damage could, take it out of people's genuine choice. Okay. But keep in mind that, the physiological effects of the adrenaline to the cortisol pumping through the blood system, it dissipates in 90 seconds. So if somebody's angry longer than 90 seconds, they're forcing it and they need to see it. If they want to claim their amygdala's hijacked, it's generally it's a lie or a crutch. Uh, Unless it's in fact a proper medical diagnosis. I mean, so we just don't want anybody to live in an environment where anger and rage is being projected or imposed. We want you to have, and I love how he touched on today, it's all about joy. It's all about trying to be free and live the best you can be, and truly walk in this life free to choose the destiny that you want, and punch through and get it done. Become a person who's really alive and vibrant and fruitful, not just reproductive in this world, but somebody who's actually causing great things to happen out there. But like I said, I sent Rabbi Goldberg. We're talking about trying to expand this international Noahide Network television station to make it available. We need more audience, and so we're trying to get it set up so that people can get it on Apple or Android and maybe Fire TV. I don't know. That way you could watch. You could pull up maybe some of these books. You could pull them up and watch them as a video on demand series on your phones and whatnot. I don't know. We're looking at expanding that. If not, I also got some job resumes out there and trying to get some response for that. But I'm not sure where to go next. So if somebody's got a recommendation for another book to start maybe Monday, I think we're not going to probably have a lesson tomorrow. There's no need. We finished this book today. So if somebody's got something that they think would be useful, beneficial, and has some Torah relevance, Dr. David Lieberman here is a Jewish physician. So this was a good selection by our friend Zakia down in Lima. And so I thought, okay, I researched it, looked at it, checked the person out before I decide, okay, let's just do this. But if somebody's got something they want to hear, a topic or maybe something classical, let me know, and we'll see if we can come up with that for Monday, a new book for Monday. If not, I'm trying to roll with life as Hashem encourages, but I'm just overjoyed that some of you continue to come back daily. But the numbers have been soft, the last few broadcasts, if it only reaches 20 people, 30 people, I ask myself, is it worth the time, energy, and resource? I know that you ladies appreciate it, and those that come regularly appreciate it, but it's about being the best us that we can be, and can our time, energy, and resources be more effective in this world. It's all about making the world a better place. If you're truly a B'nai Noach, you're going to not just passively think of the Sheva Mitzvot as something you got to do or don't do. Actively get involved in really making your community and the world a better place. And I'm confident that this book, had a real special message. And if you know somebody who's a bit of a rageaholic, don't be afraid. Now you've got a source where you can purchase a book and hand it to them in true loving kindness, and it may just change the world for a better, just by one person overcoming their anger. And there's a lot in here that's visually, it's psychologically proven material. Dr. Lieberman's a highly, highly, highly respected. Some people even say he's the number one person on the planet on this topic. So it's been a joy. So I'm still tentatively scheduled this week with Pirkei Avos and Beyond the Seven with Rabbi Poston out of Jerusalem. And hopefully Rabbi Goldberg will be back on Sunday with the Genesis class. I know we had a little bit of a mix-up last week, and that was because his son got engaged, and him and his wife got to go meet the bride's parents. And that's just the way they do things, Jewish people. And so he was so excited to meet the other family, because if they have grandchildren, it's something they share, and so they want to develop that relationship and bond. And it caused him to miss last Sunday's class. I missed. I was ready for the broadcast, but it never happened. And I went on his lead, and he told me set it up, and I did, and it didn't happen. But nonetheless, he should be back this Sunday. But I appreciate you all coming back regularly. Feel free to share these things out there. And I'm going to sign up for now. Signing off for Rocky Mountain Readings. Have a wonderful, wonderful